Hello, welcome. My name is Christy Callahan. I'm the Director of Marketing here at eLearning Brothers. Thank you for joining today. We're going to be talking about how to succeed with customer education and make it a profit center, featuring Craig Weiss. I'm sure most of you, if not all of you, already know Craig Weiss, but he is the CEO and lead analyst for the Craig Weiss Group and founder of FindAnLMS. This session will be recorded, and we'll email you a copy of this recording out to everyone who registered, and we'll be sending that probably on Monday or Tuesday next week. So please keep an eye out for that. Also, if you have questions during the webinar, we'll be ready to answer your questions in the questions panel or during the webinar. Actually, we'll probably just do it towards the end, to be honest with you, but feel free to use the questions panel as you need it. And we'll get to as many of these questions as you can. And if we can't get to all of the questions, what we can do is we'll continue the conversation offline after the event. In fact, if you haven't already, please check out our community, rockstars.elearningbrothers.com. There's all kinds of goodies in there, tips and tricks. And we also have a section for learning management, a section for e-learning development, and really for each of our products. So we definitely encourage you to join. So since we have a fantastic superstar guest today, Craig Weiss, I'm actually very excited to hear from you. I'm going to turn it over to you. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you everybody for, I know a lot of people get zoomed out or whatever, webinar out. So I do appreciate you coming in and listening today. So, I'm going to be talking about how to succeed with customer education and, as you can see, make it a profit center. I think, as a former director of training that did a lot of what we called then customer training, with the B2B and B2C market, there's always this premise that a training or L&D is sort of a money loser, right? I mean, that's sort of, where's the return on the investment? Where's this coming from? I'm going to show you how that happens. At one company, I generated about $1 million in under 12 months. In another, I generated $500,000 in 9 months. And I'm going to show you and talk to you about how that's done. And products and services association of every place I've been at that had this, even starting programs from nothing, which is what the case was, I was able to turn it from red to black. So next slide, please. All right, so here's it in, right? Show us the money. And you would say, okay, and then sort of be now going back, okay, how am I going to figure this out? How am I going to do this? How am I going to get that? And so, and today, I normally don't do little agendas, but I did this time. So the first thing we're going to cover is the 6 golden rules of success. And you can go in any order of these, but I'm going to go through that. Break even and break the bank. And that's an exercise. So make sure you have your paper ready. Then we're going to talk about how to pay off webinars and on demand. I'm going to explain to you how you can actually break even in at maximum 6 weeks, and then the rest is pure revenue and profit. And then certification programs, bonanza, what you need to do, what you don't need to do. And we'll go from there. And I'll also talk about through this, going through a pricing strategy that actually works. And of course, it's going to be based on the break even and break the bank. Next slide, please. Okay, follow each step to ensure on your path to profit. One of the things I didn't have in here is you got to be excited about it. I mean, I would get up, and when I went in, and if I had employees, I'd have to do the employee side. If I didn't, and I was just doing it on the other pieces, I mean, my mind would be racing about, look, you want to provide value here. You want to provide content, courses or whatever you might be doing today. It's webinars and then on demand that brings value, that brings benefit. Because the great thing about this is if you do it correctly, you're going to have a loyal customer. You're going to have a returning customer. You're going to have repeat business on your products or services that you're providing. If it's members, you're going to get members that a lot of members actually want that personal and professional development. They want that third-party content, and you're going to provide that. So, proprietary based content or content that you're creating, you can make money off of. And it's fantastic when you can utilize that, because you can take that money and you can go back and you get better budget line items, right? You don't have to fight with somebody. You don't have to fight with procurement. You don't have to, battle it out. I mean, I dealt directly a lot of times with COOs, and when you show somebody $500,000, they're going to greenlight anything that you want. So never forget that. All right, number one, business strategy. What are these outcomes you want from customer education? And of course, part of it is, look, I want to make money. Privately, that's really the piece here, right? I mean, when I think of universities, for example, and I taught at a university, I was on like a special budget committee. They were talking about the students as numbers, dollars, right? Because that has to be what sustains them. And that's kind of the way I look at it from a business standpoint with customer education. What are the outcomes? Okay, the outcome is, again, repetitive business. You're going to want these people to keep buying those courses, whatever that content might be. You're going to, if you're doing podcasts, you could get sponsorships, hypothetically. You can get them to, you can do upselling. This is great. Have you thought about this? What you can do with systems when you're dealing with like machine learning. So again, that's where you need to think about it. And you have to recognize, look, this is not going to be an overnight. This is going to take time. This may take a year. It may take a year and a half, depending how everything goes out. Today's world is different than 2019, 2020. So if you've done customer education programs in the past and they've not been successful or to the level you want, you have to take that and throw that in the garbage pail, because those days are gone. That method, everything, COVID has changed everything. And, customers typically take training, right? Customer education at home anyway. So that part hasn't changed. And it just is coming out. But what are those outcomes? And the outcome is going to be tied to what I call impact of learning. Impact of learning ties directly to the businesses, the company, the association's goals and objectives. So, if the association goal is to increase membership by 15%, all right, you can tap that into your training, right? If the business goals, from a sales standpoint is to do this, you can find this out. Then, okay, how we can assist, because they're not going to necessarily be looking at you from that perspective. And if you're thinking about starting a customer education program, you can sort of say, okay, the outcome is I want to generate $50,000 after the first year. That's conservative, and that's, fine. If you're going like, well, I'm going to generate $500,000 after the first year, and you're providing like one course, even if it's an amazing course, that's, a little bit different. All the courses within the business strategy, is what I say, pick the top three, because a lot of people have an entire list of all these outcomes. Narrow, narrow, narrow. You're going to pick the top three. What are the three most important to you as a department, right? Because you're overseeing this department, to you. And if you're doing a lot of instructor-led, that's got to change. So you're going to do a lot of, you're going to do VILT, which is virtual. You're going to do on-demand, which is going to get repetitive business, and also enables other people, and we'll talk about that. Think about all those kinds of things. Valued customer, you want them to come back. You want repeat business. You want them repeat business for your product, for your company. All these come into play. So that's part of a business strategy. The content strategy is super important. Look, at the end of the day, it comes down to content. You can have an amazing system, phenomenal. You have a great business, pricing strategy, everything else. But if the content, the courses are boring, if they're text and just images, you're going to have a problem. You've got to make them engaging. You got to make them interactive. They can do a Q&A. You got to make it so they can bounce around. So you got to need a table of contents, which you can do in any third-party authoring tool, by the way. And now there's video tools that you can do the same thing. So, you need that, because at the end of the day, the customer and whatever they're being taught or being trained on is going to focus on only what they're interested in. So if you have courses and you're like, oh, you've got to go linear, you have to do ABCD and you have to complete the whole thing, you're setting yourself up for failure. They're going to do it because they're required to do it, perhaps to open something else up, right? Same thing with partner training. They should only focus on what the relevant is of interest to them. If you're teaching them how to sell XYZ, and they're only interested in of the 5 topics that are even in a micro learning course, by the way, you can have a table of contents. You're only interested in chapter 2. Why are you forcing them to chapter 1? So always have a table of contents. It's crucial. I always say, when you go and buy something, right? You don't go into like Best Buy here in the United States. You don't go in at Best Buy and go, hey, you know what, I need a TV, but in the meantime, I'm gonna look at a computer and something I have no interest in. You go right to the TVs. And probably your customers has done some kind of a research ahead of time. So what are the types? What are their delivery mechanism? Is it gonna be targeted? Are you gonna be looking at these type of courses for this type of customer? Are you going to be looking at it for a different type of customer? Because you can have different, some customer education have also commercial. So they have a professional and then they have the consumer side. And so obviously the content's got to be different for those 2 items. The third here, pricing strategy, is really the behemoth. So content is crucial, obviously. You have to have the right pricing strategy. I see a lot of people, a lot of amazing customer education that is overpriced. So, you have to think about it this way. What's the end game? Again, back to the outcome. Do you want to build mass, or do you want to build and try to get money up quick and pull that through there? I can tell you that my success, from my perspective, is building the mass. I've seen people, they charge $300, $400 for a course. And, some people will buy it. Some people will, skip on it. I've seen like, I looked at Intuit, for example, and they used to charge for QuickBooks training courses online, and they're interactive. Obviously, it's the product. And they used to charge like $399, $359, and they're over $300. And their latest now is they just put them all in as a bundle, and they charge $699, and they always do normally $999. I can tell you that's never normal. It always reminds me of retail when you're like 60% off and you think you're getting a great deal. And that's 60% off a price they never ever charged to begin with. So what works, if you haven't heard of Blue Ocean strategy, this is what I recommend. This is how I made all that money, was through Blue Ocean. And Blue Ocean, by the way, the perfect example is what Apple did. When Apple launched iTunes, anyone that was back there in the time of MP3s would remember how much CDs cost, right? They were not 99 cents. How much MP3s were? They were several bucks and whatever. And they came in and said, okay, we're going to charge 99 cents to build mass. And what happened? They dominated the market. Well, why did they do that? They did Blue Ocean. And so, I'm going to talk about how to break even, and then you can calculate a Blue Ocean strategy. But I can tell you that I never charged anything higher than $49.95. Never. And I made that money. Matter of fact, I charged most of the times about $29. So you can do it. And I'm going to kind of go through. So you're going to, if you're, I'm going to have a high level about Blue Ocean, but obviously you can surf the net and find a much more extensive about Blue Ocean. System strategy. Will the system you have accomplish what you want? If it doesn't, then you need to think about how to do it. If you're looking for a system, then, things that you're going to want. You're going to want e-commerce. It's a definitive. If the system doesn't have e-commerce today, you could look at like a third party, like Course Merchant, for example, which can integrate through an API or deep integration. They have that ability to go into a system. You may tie it to Stripe. There's actually some vendors that do e-commerce, they tie it to Stripe or Square, and you can do the same thing. So, when you're looking at e-commerce, you're not looking at it from the standpoint the vendor's not going to do a payment processor. That's like an authorized.net or similar, but they can help you if you don't have one. I mean, obviously, if you're using like Square or Stripe, it's also built in as a payment processor. But, what are going to be the outcomes? So you need to have that. They need to have promo codes. They need to have VAT, V-A-T, which is not used in the States, but it's used everywhere else. They may have an ability for digital downloads, the promo discount codes. Some will do generating POs and invoices. A lot of them don't. I always look for bundling. See if they have like a subscription bundle that you can do, because then you can do that as well. And a variety of other things. You're going to want a multi-tenant. A multi-tenant is basically a vendor may refer to it as portal and subportals. I refer to it as a parent and child. So you're the parent. And then let's say you've got a bunch of clients and they don't want to have your look and feel. So they become a child and they can have their own look and feel. The vendor does it for them. You set the rules for them, so they can upload their own users, for example, their own customers, which are thus could be customers, could be employees that you're providing that for under customer education. They can be, you're different each partner. I mean, the sky's the limit. And then you decide what they have. You can push content down, they can upload, they can, and you come out with your cost for that. And then they can only see themselves. You see everybody with their metrics and segmentation. So, if you're going to get the multi-tenant, find out if the vendor has it where they can generate reports for each of those children, right? Besides the parent, because a cumulative report is great, but you also want to see what each one is doing. And it could be different product lines. So the parent could be the overall, XYZ widget university. And then each child could be a line of business or a different product. If I was Nestle, it could be Kellogg's or whatever they make, and so forth and so forth and so forth. And now you can sort of start getting a better idea. If the metrics is like, how many views, that's completely worthless. I always say you're not a search engine. You want to know where these people are going and what they're looking at. How many times have they gone into the course or content? How many times the table of contents system doesn't have that drill down, contact the vendor and ask them if they do custom reports. They're going to charge you. They're getting this data, so they can extract it. And I used to have to do custom reports because I picked sometimes systems that just didn't have that ability. You want it, because what's that going to tell you is what's working and what isn't working. And then if it's not working, is it because it's bad content or design, or is it something else? You're going to see a trend line. Give it about 6 months. You're going to start seeing trend lines. You're going to figure that out. Same thing, this system. You're going to want digital coaching. This is hot. Mentoring. You can mentor a customer, a client, a partner, and you can do the system. You know what? You can even charge for it. You're going to create a bundle subscription, and you're going to charge for that. So eventually, you're going to want to have a system that you can see on the back end, and there's a couple of do it today, on the back end where people rate these mentors or these coaches, right? You don't want to assign somebody. They might be an expert, but they might be a horrible coach or a horrible mentor, and that's not going to help you in getting upselling and additional content. So you're going to want to do that. Marketing strategy. I get a lot of people and they just build it and they launch this thing, they blast out maybe an email, and then they're like, okay, here comes no, it doesn't work that way. This is an ongoing, and you can use an email marketing program. Talk to the vendor, your learning system vendor, and see if you can API that into the system. The majority of them can, that's not an issue. And then, you're sending out, some of these systems actually have marketing built in, like email marketing and whatever. You got to come up with some, what I call, kitschy thing, and, to sell into kind of a value there. You may offer something like, hey, get this and have a chance to win a drawing for a $50 Amazon gift card, or where people like those stuff. One time I did it, I don't recommend this anymore, but one time I did it where I sent out this big, mail piece that went out to all these different companies that were clients of ours. And it was like Seek an Adventure, and kind of had 7 wonders of the world. And it kind of looked like a little Indiana Jones pouch, even though it was in the mid 2000s, people recognized this thing. And it got people interested, but it's a constant push. I'm going to recommend you get an email tracker. There's Banana Tag and some of these others, because you can't do it within the system. There aren't systems out there that do legit email tracking. I mean, they can tell you that the email went out, but what you need to find out is whether or not people open this email. And a tracker will, obviously do that, especially if you're pushing it through your email, which is kind of what you want it to do. If you push it through the system, they may not know. And, you can do that. You can do a mass mail merge, but these are kinds of things. And then, your goal is to constantly build and sustain this. There are people, and they'll be like, hey, we've got machine learning. They don't know what that is. They don't care. Not relevant. What's relevant to the customer to get it in there? For 90% of our customers love this. This is fantastic. And you may be saying, well, how do I get 90%? Well, you go talk to 5 people and you find, 4 love it. That's fine, right? You go to I see restaurants on their line. They're like, #1 Chinese restaurant in the area. I have to think to myself, well, how do they get that? Most of the time, they just say it. We're #1, and who can argue? Customer strategy. Have you done to verify who the customers are? Have you contacted a survey? First thing you're going to do, you're going to create a survey. You're going to make it anonymous so they get honest answers, because otherwise they're going to get skewed. And you may do a drawing at the end, the old things where you get things that are like, hey, we'll give you $5 or something. Some people, that's an incentive. Some people, it isn't. May offer 1 course for free or something you might have. But you're going to find out a survey. And you're going to find out what's their interest in, you don't make it more than 1 page. It's 10 questions. One of the things you're going to ask is what technology they have in their house. What is the browser they're using? What is the speed of their connection? They could say it's 1 gigabyte. In reality, they may be at like 600 megabytes. Are they using Wi-Fi? Are they using smart mesh adapters? But I would definitely find out the browser, because there are systems that require like the latest version of a browser. And so they may have an outdated browser, and they may need to show them how to get that browser. Ask if they have a PDF. Can they open PDFs? And in some cases, you'll know your customers. You need to find out if they even know what that is. I mean, there's people today that still use Internet Explorer, but there's systems today that do not. They use Edge. You need to find out if these people are on Macs or on PCs, because not all the systems, when it works well with Macs. So, if you get people back and they're like, never listen to a vendor and they say they're browser agnostic. If you've got customers using Brave, they're not testing the system in Brave. So again, with video, can they handle that? They may be in an area, rural areas, they can't handle a high speed, and they're missing out on those pieces. So a lot of people just focus here. Today, you need to also focus on technological of how can they get that information and access that information. Next slide, please. Yeah, okay. This is the thing I love the most, and a lot of people always say to me, why do I need to know cost per seat? Customer education, it's all about cost per seat. And so you need to know the exact cost per seat per learner. That's going to be per seat, per learner, per year, right? So when you buy a system, they always love this thing, active users, and you only pay for active users, but they give you an annual that you're paying. There's no refunds here. So very few vendors actually sit there and count the vendors each month, the number of users per data. They'll do like up to, and then they give you a cost. So I'm going to give you an actual example. I'm not going to use the vendor's name. And their cost was $89,000. I saw this from a reader. They sent it to me. $89,000 was the cost of the system. The active users were up to 6,000, right? So really what they were paying for is 6,000 seats for $89,000. That's what you're paying for. Now, if you end up with 4,000, the vendor doesn't care. You're paying for 89,000. So you have to look at that total cost. And if the vendor, right at the 6,000, if it was 89,000, I'm doing it right here. My cost is $14.83 cost per seat at 6,000 seats. Now, if you're running your numbers and you're averaging about, 3,000, which in that case, you wouldn't buy up to 6,000 seats, you want to go through. So you also have to kind of be realistic. There are people that are like 100,000, I've got 100,000 clients, 100,000, it's going to be 100,000. No, it's not. You're going to have to be more conservative. And the more you pay, right, for the cost of the system. So let's say it's $14.83. Okay, so it's $14.83. You can put that on your little piece of paper. How much is it going to cost for the content? So, you can't today, you're not a reseller of third-party content. So you can't buy third-party content, buy Skillsoft or whoever, or Go One, and which is an aggregator, and then, sell that to your customers or your clients. You can't do it today, although there are a couple that are eyeing that approach. But generally speaking, okay, in today's world, you can't do it. So it's going to be based on, your authoring tool. What is your authoring tool? What are you doing on that? And then, what some people do is they'll just put it in that total cost and they calculate that. If it's something like, look, it cost $1,000 and you've had it for 3 years, you've already sort of paid that off. So, that's the kind of way I look at it on that cost aspect, which is why a lot of times I just focus on that cost per seat. Now, if you've just bought a tool, you have to sort of calculate that out. Let's say it's, at 1,000, 1,200 is kind of like a constant number I see in that range. So at $1,200 for like a storyline, for example, or something of that nature, one seat, one license, you plan to build 4 courses out of this, and then you're going to resell on that. I mean, you're going to constantly sell these things, so, you can figure out that number and then recoup that as part of it. So you don't need to put the cost in directly. You can put that as a separate cost line item. Again, you're going to go back to cost per seat. Web conferencing tool, how much did it cost you? How many users? What's the cost per user? You're going to need that again as a separate line. We're focusing on cost per seat, which is going to be tied to the content. Web conference, I'm going to show you how that works shortly. So let's say it's $14.83. And you decide to sell each course for $29.95. So, if you think about it, you're making $15.12 at $29.95. Now, what did it cost you? $14.83. So you're already turning a little bit of a trickle of a profit in there at that number seat, right? And if you have, let's say you end up not with the 6,000, let's say you end up with the 6,000. Okay, you've just made $90,720. And that thing cost you 89, you've already netted $8,000, right? So that's how quick it can kind of come up if you're getting it. Now, obviously, if you're getting and you say, look, I want to charge $49.95, I've seen that before too with people. So again, at $49.95 minus $14.83, you're making $35 off that one customer right away for that one course. That's a price for one course. And you're just now making $35 off them. And let's say out of that 6,000, you only ended up with like 4,000. you just made $140,000 and 400. Well, a little bit over, just shy of 1,400. You've made over $140,000 out of all your customers using Blue Ocean strategy. See how easy it is? Always find out about cost per seat, because well, a vendor a lot of times will show it like $5 per user, and your eyes, the way neuromarketing is, your eyes are just looking at that $5. You got to take 5 times 12. Now you find out the real cost is $60 when you have a lower user base. Your goal is to get more customers. So more people buy the product, more everything else. Next slide. Okay, so here we go. This is how we figure out your pricing strategy and perks to turn it in, and we go into recurring revenue. And again, these are sort of the 5 pieces. I sort of gave you a little bit of the exercise on the back here. You know, are you going to do a subscription process? How that's going to work? How much content? And you may say, look, I don't have anything. Okay, you don't have to be masters of instructional design here. Sometimes it helps just to learn some basics. And what's great about the internet today, you can find it. Go a few pages in though off Google. Don't rely on like page 1. You're going to be severely disappointed. And then just kind of look at that. Are you going to bundle? Bundle means, look, I'm going to give you some courses, maybe a podcast or 2 if you're going to have that. Maybe I'm also going to give you like a couple of PDFs, or maybe you do ebooks. I'm also going to give you a couple of web conferences, so you can attend a couple of webinars. That's a bundle, right? It's like a subscription. Specific surveys, you're going to do that. You're going to calculate. You're going to expand. You're going to, what are the perks? WIFM exists here. What's in it for me? The person, the customer, whoever they are, wherever they are, there's got to be a perk. There's got to be a benefit for them. And the 2 things I listed here, oh, I'm sorry. Can you go back to the previous slide? Previous slide, please. Thank you. So 2 things I looked here is that price bundling and this other form of bundling. The pricing models that vendors use overwhelmingly is price band and bundle, which is, you remember I told you up to 6,000 is 89,000. So again, they'll say, what's the active users for customers? Part of the problem is it's best to find a system that either plays at least 80% in the customer education market. The reason for that is they're going to have a pricing model dedicated to that market. When you get a system and they're doing a combo, the best ones you're going to find are the ones that have different pricing models, because a pricing model for employees is a set model, right? I ask how many people, you give me the number. I have 10,000 employees, but I'm only going to need it for 4,500. Okay, so 4,500. Customers, you're going to be growing. So you have to have a model that works. A lot of times I see systems, even in the customer ed space, the model expects you to pay up front. That's not what you want. You're going to negotiate that out, by the way, to have that, and you can do that. So, you know, a price band could say, okay, between 1,000 and 5,000 customers, it's going to cost you $6, you know, $4 per user per month. Hence, you can see the calculation there. But, you know, let's say they say it at $2, and then you're kind of going in there. You're paying basically at that 5,000 model. So, you know, these are the kind of things that you want to talk about or think about in terms of your pricing. And using a subscription package or bundling, also, yes, the cost is going to be a little bit higher. Maybe it's, you know, $99.99. Your cost is really $48. But it, you know, it comes with 5 courses or something. It's all about a value. And by the way, you keep hearing me say 95 and 99. Never do a straight number. Never say $20. Never say, you know, $400. Nothing like that. Neuromarketing says, and I don't care if you're Mensa, your brain actually doesn't know instantly of the 5 cents are different. So somebody may be looking and they $50. $49.95, even though it's 5 cents, they do it. The masters of it were infomercials. That's how they became successful with their pricing, because that's what they did. That's why you would see $19.99 or $29.95. Nowadays, they recommend that you actually don't even do the 5 or 9. You say something like $14.78 or, you know, $14.76 or something instead of $15. but I think you can get away with the $14.95 or $14.99. Again, you're below that threshold, and it does make a difference. You may not think it does, but it really does. How many times have you bought a product and really the difference is 5 cents, but you think you're getting a steal? Next slide. Okay, web conferencing, right? These are the webinars. So, if you have a system, you're likely have, whether it's been API'd or there's already an integration, which means API'd, you may be using Zoom or GoToMeeting or, Ring Central, whatever. You may be using a freebie, although I don't recommend that. But, you're doing that. The system may have a proprietary base, their own one, but, it's going to be for X number of seats and whatever. The numbers you see here actually, so you're not looking for it from a meeting standpoint. You're looking at it from a webinar standpoint. If you're going to do meetings, the cost actually tends to get a little higher. So these are real numbers. I went to Zoom, which I use, and I went in there and it costs $400 for Zoom for the year for up to 100 attendees per session. So I can have up to 100 people attending these things. And typically when you do webinars, you get a lot of people sign up to do it. And then the numbers tend to be between, nowadays, you can look between 30%, 50%, even up to 70% lower, which is why on demand really becomes the value here. But look, it's 400. How many sessions can I offer per month? And it's going to be it could be on different topics. You could have it where you have a session on how to do ABC and you have different time slots. So, on Monday you offer it at this time, on Tuesday or Thursday you offer it at this time, and you run like, 2 or 3 and it's on the same topic, enabling people to fit it in their schedules. And remember, customers are located around the world. So again, that's another value of on demand, but we're going to go under this kind of premise. That you can do that. In my example, I'm doing it on the standpoint of I'm only doing 4 per month. On demand is free, which means they can see it later on, or for people, that attended can see it later on. What you could do with on demand for people I haven't seen it, you can charge something like $5 or $6. I wouldn't go anything higher than $10, and then kind of go in there. So I calculated this out here. The cost per each to attend is $29.85. All right. So I limited to 25. And now you can start to see under these assumptions, if 25 people attend, I am now earning, in the cost per attendee. And I can't remember the number I put in, but it wasn't that high. And it came out that I was making $746 for one session. Okay, if I did at 50%, at the 12, I was doing $358.20, and that's for one session. Well, it cost me $400 for the entire year. Now, if I did the $746 for one session, I had a full at 25, and I think I was charging to break the attendance, let's say it was $30 hypothetically. Okay. And again, that's why I would bundle them. I would have multiple webinars for one flat price, because really what you're doing here is it's up to 100 attendees, and the cost is really you spread it over if you think about it that way. But anyway, $746. If I only had 12 people come in a session, that's $358.20. What it cost me? $400. If I multiply it, and that's one session. If I multiply it by 4. Again, you can read the numbers here. You've now paid off your web conferencing solution in 1 month just by doing. You could break it out of there as well. So again, if I decided, okay, I'm going to charge only, let's say, $14.95 for each session, and 12 people came into it. Well, $14.95 times 12, that's about $180. So you can obviously do the math there. You'll make your money back in the first month, even at that price. So again, right here, the amount you made, $399, 400 less than 2 months. That's how web conferencing is so awesome, because you can make a lot of money if right here, right? Just think how much money you could be making just on web conferencing on these kinds of things. And you can even bundle it, put it in there with some other content, and you're going to pay this thing off in less than 2 months. I mean, you're not going to have more than 100 attendees per session anyway. And that's Zoom's, base package. And it does everything that you need, analytic wise, it does it all. Next slide. And I know we just have a few minutes before we bounce into some questions here. Certification. Look, if you're going to make your program easy, I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to be, and excuse my language, people know I'm blunt, it's going to be a loser. You got to make it difficult. You got to make it challenging. What's in it for me is always, and if you look, my customers can't have a certification, that sounds like an association. I'm telling you, you can do a certification program. If you're selling like a camera, you can have different levels for somebody to be an expert in that camera, right? And there could be a benefit for them doing that. Oh, I'm an expert in wildlife photography, and I've got a certification from XYZ camera place, and this is gonna, people are today all about skills, right? And putting it on LinkedIn. Well, certification program from XYZ is a great way if you're selling vehicles, or you're selling some type of service, or you're selling obviously software. If I'm an expert in QuickBooks, then, you're also looking at validation. People love validation. I'm an expert. I'm very proficient at whatever. People like it. That's why people like certification programs. It's a validation of excellence in their minds, right? You can go on LinkedIn today and you're going to see people that completed something and they've been certified, and they posted on there. This is fantastic. So, what's going to be the customer benefit completing and passing the certification? And you can have different tiers. And call it beginner. Nobody ever sees themselves as a beginner. So maybe level 1, a level 2, level 3, and level 3 is an expert, or whatever you might do. There's an organization out there, as it relates to, in this case, associations. They make over $50 million a year on their certification program alone. They're global. Obviously, that's not a common number, but it gives you an example. Every certification program I had was always successful. I did it with customers. I did it in associations for members. You put a variety of different things. You can have them do some work. Obviously, they're doing it from home. I want to do assignments. They're not kids. No adult likes assignments, but you can have projects. That's something good. You can do online proctoring. I have to tell you, typically online proctoring works. Well, they'll do a biometric capability, some scan the license. They actually are able to look, so the webcam's on, someone's doing it. Most of the time, though, with online proctoring, they actually don't have a person on the other end. They're just recording it, and then they're validating it through there. So you don't have to have somebody physically go to a location. Second thing, when you're doing a certification, are your customers asking for one? And then, of course, if not, how do you know what the demand is? You're going to send out a survey. And with a survey, you're very specific. Not, would you be interested in a certification program? Most people are going to say yes. You got to be specific. Use a Likert, which is statements. Certification. Our certification program is going to run 6 months, and specific. How likely are you? And then you do the thing, and then you can have a follow-up and get some idea for a cost. So you can figure that out. What's involved, I think you can read here. Who's going to be assessing this? I list the word assess because most people, that's the term. I believe a term should be validation. Don't say assessment. It scares people. Validation. I'm validating your skills. I'm validating your knowledge. I'm validating, right? Validation always sounds fantastic. Assessment is the boogeyman. And then follow through. Can I find that customer and flip them into, whether it's another certification program, whether it's an additional content to continue this amazing journey? Everything about your customer education is the greatest thing ever. You've got to breathe it, live it, and it can be seen. anything that you think, it could be done, right? You know, I want to do VR because I require somebody to have a VR headset. That's not realistic. So, you know, you look on those pieces. I think that's, what's the next slide, please? There it is. You know, there's money to be made here. And at the end of the day, you know, don't match. You know, I see a lot of people in customer education and they look at their competitor. And well, the competitor's charging a lot, ergo, I should charge a lot. Who cares what they're charging? You charge based on the knowledge that you've received. And again, blue ocean, which will work. And again, your blue ocean may be like, look, my cost per seat's $49, Craig. All right, then blue ocean, you can't go at that low point unless you're building, you know, the goal is to like, look, I'll take a loss for the first couple of years and then I'll make money on the exit because I'm going to be building quickly. But you may say, you know what, I'm going to charge $75, not 75, I'm going to charge $74.75. And my competitor's charging $299 and that, right? 74, and you're still making money. You're making 25 bucks probably about on that person alone. And then you just add up the numbers. So I think too many people get eyed in on what their competitor is doing, you know, whether it's an association, whether it's somebody else that's a competitor of the cameras or whatever that product is and what they're charging. They may, you don't know who they are. They may be completely morons when it comes to understanding profit margin and markups. And they can be greedy, but I guarantee at a different price point, you're going to be more successful, right? People always, at the end of the day, you bought a system that had to fit your budget. You didn't buy a system that was out of your budget you can afford. You buy a car based on your budget. You buy a TV based on your budget. You buy a computer based on your budget, right? You go to a restaurant based on what you can afford for your budget. So why would you do any different when you're selling courses or content? And again, don't just match, you know, bet to win in the long run. Think of it as, you know, sort of as it's not a sprint, it's a journey, but it's a journey that can be quite successful for you. Next slide, please. Okay, there's my contact information. My amazing little piece here disappeared, but that's how you can sort of find all my information. It's craigweissgrp.com, and that's my website. That's FindAnLMS, and then the blog. Thank you.
Thank you. It was great. And my apologies if the export did anything with the text there on the screen, but we do have a few questions, so I thought it might be nice to cover those briefly. It looks like Amy and Monroe asked, what does Craig think an average length course should be?
Say that again.
What do you think an average length course, like how long should it be?
Okay, great question. First and foremost, duration really means nothing. Everybody learns at a different pace. So, you know, you could say a course is, I want to do an hour, 6 hours. Those things are death. I would say no more than like 25 minutes, 15 minutes. That's based, by the way, if somebody goes linear. You're going to push the idea that you want them to bounce around. Focus on what you want to know, when you want to know, what's relevant to you. So that duration is on somebody going A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right down a path, right? And what may take you to read a book, for example, 9 days, may take somebody else an hour based on how exciting it is. So I see stuff and it's like 6 hours and it's based on 52 lessons. Yuck. No one's doing that. They're not even on YouTube watching, you know, an hour's worth unless they're, you know, some amazing movie. So, you know, I think a lot of people get stuck on duration. You've got to put the time in there. But I would just say 25 minutes, the max 30 minutes. You know, micro learning, I see this all the time, and they'll say 5 minutes. That's not true, right? Everybody learns there. I don't know who said 5 minutes. They're probably skimming. I mean, no one is doing it in 5 minutes. If it's even a video, right? There's ones that you can actually bounce around the different pieces based on a video text. So, people today, they're getting mass consumption, no more than 30 minutes. It may take you an hour or 2 hours, but no more than 30 minutes. And really, it's up to the customer to, again, bounce around with that. Great question.
Yeah, awesome. Oh, this is Dominic, one of my favorite clients. Hi, Dominic. He has a question here. Do you have any advice for startups? Specifically, he's saying the cost of getting customers can be the biggest obstacle.
Yeah, so, there's got to be, you have to have a little bit of a push or an incentive, especially if no one's heard of you, and unfortunately, right? And be aware. I mean, today you can do first from SEO. Obviously, an organic search is much better than PPC, which gets some eyeballs. But when it comes to getting your customers for that, start small. So you're going to just do one course, and it's going to be based on whatever you're providing or selling or whatever that might be, and then go low in. I would go low. I would go blue ocean right out of the gate. You may lose some money initially, but over the long run, you're going to be more successful. And then when you're looking at that TOC, if you have one, you're going to, again, focus on where they're going into. There it is. Focus on where it's going into, and then you can build additional content. Send out surveys, but you have to realize it takes time. So don't give up. A lot of people give up and they're like, hey, I'm not getting anybody after 3 months or whatever. All right, find another marketing approach. Find a different way when you get the people that are in there. You got to get them in, and you get them in. And that's why I say also, when you pick a system, make sure it has a nice slick look. I always say, when you go to a car dealership and you have 2 exact cars and one car hasn't been washed and the other's been washed, what are you looking at? The washed one. So, people sometimes buy systems that just look bad and it was inexpensive and, way below budget. You got to make it slick and look, because that's what they're doing on the internet. I'm sure you've gone onto the websites of some sites and you're like, yuck, and you're not even going to buy that product. It's an illusion, and you're going to tap into that.
Great question. We have time for a few more questions, but first I wanted to let you all know that if you are interested in signing up for a free Rockstar Learning Platform account, we are now offering that. I believe it's up to 5 users, and it's not an account that expires, so you can have it forever. So perhaps you can test this customer education model we've been discussing today. So just visit elearningbrothers.com and go to the Manage Learning tab, and you'll see the Rockstar Learning Platform pages, and we encourage you to sign up there for a free account and try out some of these strategies that Craig shared today. Are there any other questions, as we've got 5 minutes?
Can I mention one thing?
Absolutely.
So I don't really always like to hype my products, but if you go to FindAnLMS.com, you can register in under 30 seconds. It's free. And under, I think it's business segment audience type, is customer education. You can click it. Then you're going to see every system that has a customer education program. You can also, I would click that. I'd click e-commerce, and multi-tenant's one of those things. So again, you can see, and you can arrow down from there. You can compare the systems, apple to apple. eLearning Brothers.
Great.
Yeah,
that's fantastic. Yeah. Fantastic. Perfect. All right. Well, is there anything else, any other tips that we could think of that you didn't cover today? I know you have a wealth of information. I'm so appreciative. So thank you so much for presenting for us today. It was really, really wonderful having you. Oh, we do have a question that came in, and from Paul. He wants to know, what's one thing that has the greatest impact on engagement?
The biggest thing that has the greatest impact, there's actually 2 pieces. The biggest one that has the highest level of engagement is going to tie back to that content and interactivity and having the customer thrilled. You want them to see you want the customer to see you, the customer education program, as actually really caring about them. You want that perception. So I'm going to tell you, and you're going to be like, go on the internet and look up propaganda techniques. It's used in advertising every day. You just don't realize it. And, you know, there's bandwagon, which is just like you and me. There's plain folks, which is, you know, relatable. There's a bunch of them. You're going to tap into the propaganda techniques. And I know you might be like, I don't want to do that. I'm ethical. There's nothing unethical about that. It's done every time. So you're being seen there. The other thing that gets engagement, I find that when a customer signs up, I will send them a personal email. Do they have any questions? It's not a sell. It's literally, and it's coming from you, whoever runs that department. It's not coming from a trainer. It's not a generic. Those things irk people. And, you know, and you're providing additional things. Hey, you know, this and that. By the way, just for, you know, becoming a customer, you receive 1 free webinar. Wow, that's fantastic, right? Can we contact you for future inquiries? Most people say yes. Doesn't mean you ever have to, right? Just keeping them engaged.
Yes.
That's what I would recommend.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, there's a lot of people here who are saying thank you so much for a great webinar today, and it seems like people have found it very helpful. I always learn so much when I'm talking to you personally, so thank you so much. So without further ado, I know we've got a busy day ahead of us, so we should probably wrap up. Thank you so much, Craig. I truly appreciate it. And again, find Craig on LinkedIn. Maybe I'll just go back here just to show the slide one more time. We do have here.
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. Follow me. I post daily random things. I've got a podcast now. It's always tied. One part is tied to my blog, so it's a review of the blog. I add a couple of things, and then there's different topics. So there's going to be one on customer education here coming in a couple of weeks. You can find the podcast link on my blog and push it right over, or you can just contact me, and I'm more than happy. It's available on Spotify, Google Podcast, and numerous other ones. It's coming to Apple within the next 2 weeks.
Fantastic. All right, well, thank you so much, Craig. I'm going to wrap up. Have a wonderful day, everyone, and feel free to contact us with questions. Thanks again, everyone. Take care.